Hello, students. Good day. How are you all doing? You are welcome to today's lesson. Today we have integrated science, and I will be facilitating this course for the moment. My name is Ivan Salasi, and I'm your facilitator for integrated science. I know you have learned a lot of things in integrated science in the past term when you were in school. But we'll be taking a whole new topic this time around. So I want you to pay attention and get your books and your pens ready and jot down something. All right? Very good. Today we'll be looking at the respiratory system of humans. Respiratory system of humans. When we talk about respiratory, what comes to mind? When we mention system, what comes to mind? Definitely, if you hear humans, you know who we are talking about. You, myself, and any member of our families, human beings. So what is respiratory system? And what is the respiratory system of humans? But before we start, we'll look at the term respiration. Let's look at our objectives. After you have studied this course, after this lesson, you should be able to explain the term respiration. You should be able to explain the term what? Respiration. Okay, that's very good. After explaining respiration, there are things that are involved in carrying out the respiration in humans, forming the respiratory system. So you should be able to list the organs of the respiratory system. List the organs of the respiratory system. I know by now you have studied cells, you know what tissues are, you know what organs are, and you know what systems are. We'll be reminding ourselves of those things shortly. So after explaining the term respiration, you should also be able to list the organs of the respiratory system. Very good. After listing the organs of the respiratory system, you are also supposed to list the features of the respiratory organs. These organs that make up the respiratory system, how do they look like? How are they structured to help respiration? That is, they're talking about the features. When we talk about features of the respiratory system, we are talking about how the organs of the respiratory system looks like. That is the third objective. Finally, you should be able to draw and label the human respiratory system. That's some work there, and you should be ready to do it. Draw and label the human respiratory system. I'll add one which is not here. You should also know the parts of the respiratory system and their functions. The parts of the respiratory system and their functions. So let's repeat our objectives. Explain the term respiration, objective number 1. Objective number 2, list the organs of the respiratory system. List the organs of the respiratory system. Objective number 3, list the features of the respiratory organs. List the features of the respiratory organs. 4, draw and label the human respiratory system. Draw and label the human respiratory system. And finally, explain the functions of every part of the respiratory system. Explain the functions of every part of the respiratory system. All right, let's move on to the lesson. What is respiration? What is respiration? Now, we have here that respiration is the breakdown of glucose in the cells with or without oxygen to release energy and bring out carbon dioxide and water vapor. I have highlighted a few words in there, the key words, and I've changed the colors of those words. So 1, respiration is a breaking down. Remember that. It is a breaking down of what? Glucose. in what? The cells, with or without oxygen to release energy. Okay, let's take it step by step. Respiration is the breakdown of glucose. Okay, when you eat carbohydrate food, when you eat starchy foods, they go and their basic form is glucose. So this glucose has to be broken down to provide energy, and that is what we are terming as respiration. So respiration is the breaking down of glucose. Now when we are breaking down the glucose, it has to take part in a particular area. It has to take part in a particular area of the body, and it takes place in the cells. So where the glucose is broken down is in the cells of the human body. The cell is the unit of life, is the basic structure of a living organism, the cell. So respiration is the breaking down of glucose where? In the cells. I hope we've got it up to this point. Respiration, it is the breaking down of glucose in the cells. Now, what do we use to break down this glucose? It can happen with oxygen or without oxygen. Okay, later we'll learn about aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So if you are saying respiration is the breaking down of glucose in cells, it can happen with oxygen or without oxygen. So respiration is the breaking down of glucose in the cells with or without oxygen. Do you understand up to this point? We are breaking down glucose where? In the cells with what? Oxygen or without oxygen. Finally, when you break down something, something comes up. When you smash your pen or when you break your pen, you hear a sound. So this time when we break down the glucose, what comes out is energy. What comes out is energy. And aside the energy, carbon dioxide and water vapor also comes out. Do you understand up to this point? Breaking down of glucose in the cells with or without oxygen to release energy, to also bring out carbon dioxide and water vapor in the process. It's a chemical reaction that will make us understand this definition better. So we are saying that respiration is the breaking down of glucose in the cells of living organisms with or without oxygen to release energy and finally bring out carbon dioxide and water vapor. Try and learn this definition, and then you would appreciate the lesson better as we go on. Alright, let's continue. Now we know the definition of respiration. Try saying it on your own. Okay, well done. Let's continue. Another simple way of putting the definition of respiration is it can be said to be the process by which energy is obtained from food in the body of living organisms with or without the use of oxygen. This definition is much simpler. Respiration can be said to be the process by which energy is obtained from food. When you eat, it has to give you energy. So we getting the energy from food with or without the use of oxygen is termed respiration. The process by which energy is obtained from food in the body of living organisms with or without the use of oxygen. Alright, so did we get that? Can be said to be the process by which energy is obtained from food. When we eat, we get energy. So when we obtain energy from food in the body of living organisms with or without the use of oxygen, we say respiration has taken place. Okay, let's continue the lesson. The energy produced during respiration is used by cells of the living organisms for all life processes, such as movement, growth, reproduction, and repair of worn-out cell parts. Repair of worn-out cell parts. So when you get the energy, what do you use it for? We are saying that in respiration, energy is released. Energy is released. And now this second point is telling us that the energy that is released as a result of respiration is used in the basic life of the living organism. And those things include movement, growth, reproduction, and repair of worn out tissues. So everything you do in life is done as a result of the energy you have. If you don't have energy, you can't move. If you don't have energy, you can't grow. If you don't have energy, you will fall sick. So this energy comes out as a result of respiration. So the energy produced during respiration is what is used by the cells of the living organisms for all life processes. All right, very good. Let's continue. Breathing and respiration. I hope by now that is the major question that is in your mind right now. What is the difference between breathing and respiration? Breathing and respiration. Let's look at it. Breathing is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between organisms and its surroundings. This can be called external respiration. So anytime you take in air, you take in oxygen, and then you bring out carbon dioxide by breathing out, you are breathing. And that one is called external respiration. Okay, that one you just take in air which contains oxygen, and then you breathe out carbon dioxide. That is basic breathing, taking in air, bringing out carbon dioxide. And another name for that is external respiration. However, respiration is the reaction between food and oxygen. We learned earlier that it can also take place without oxygen. So when we are breaking down the food, it's a chemical reaction. You eat banku, you take in rice, it gets into your system, and there's a chemical reaction that goes to break down this food. We mentioned glucose, and I was telling you that that is what your food that you take turns into. The basic component of carbohydrates, glucose. So when that one is broken down by oxygen or without oxygen, and energy is released, okay, and energy is released in addition to carbon dioxide and water vapor. That is what we term respiration. So respiration goes in deeper than just breathing. Respiration is also sometimes called cellular respiration or internal respiration. Cellular respiration or internal respiration. Can you remind us of what we have learned so far? We've learned the definition of respiration, the process of respiration. We've learned the differences between breathing and respiration. Breathing and respiration. Breathing is taking in oxygen, bringing out carbon dioxide. But respiration is the breakdown of food with oxygen or without oxygen to release energy. The breaking down of food, glucose that is, with or without oxygen to release energy, carbon dioxide and water vapor. Very good. Structure of the respiratory system. Structure of the respiratory system. You know that for living organisms, they start at the cell level. Cells gather to form tissues. Tissues of the same kind gather to form an organ. And different organs work together in a system to form a system. So you know that we have the digestive system, we have the reproductive system, we have the respiratory system, we have the circulatory system. The basics of them all is the cell. And a number of cells come together to form tissues. So tissues and organs that living organisms use for respiration are called respiratory organs. The organs related with respiration, related with the breakdown of food to release energy, are called respiratory organs. Now let's look at these organs. The first one we have here is the lungs. The lungs are situated at the chest area of the living organism, especially the human beings. It's around your chest. The lungs are found around your chest, under the rib cage. Is that clear? So that is the lungs. That is the first organ of the respiratory system. Now it will surprise you that respiration also takes place along your skin. So the skin is also a respiratory organ. The skin is also a respiratory organ. When you go and play and you sweat, you see water, droplets of water, sweat coming from your skin. Respiration is taking place there. So the skin is also a respiratory organ. We also have the mouth. When you are tired and you are panting and the air coming through your nose is not enough, you realize that you open your mouth and air comes in and goes out. The mouth plays a very important role in respiration. So the mouth is also a respiratory organ. Now, since we are talking about living organisms, fishes are also living organisms. And in fish, they don't have lungs, they have gills. So the gills of fishes are also respiratory organs. They are also respiratory organs. Very good. Great. All right. So we have the lungs, the skin, the mouth, the gills for fishes. Okay. Features of the respiratory organs. How do the respiratory organs look like? How do the respiratory organs look like? The first one is that they have a large surface area to facilitate gaseous exchange. Now you realize that if you have a small piece of cloth and then you are trying to use it to filter water, only a small amount of water can pass through the piece of cloth because the piece of cloth is small. But if you have a wide piece of cloth, a very big piece of cloth, you can even pour a whole barrel of water and it will all filter through easily. That is how the surface area of these respiratory organs are like. They have a large surface area so that they can facilitate gaseous exchange. That is one feature. Number two, they are well supplied with blood vessels. Blood carry oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood to and from the heart. Is that clear? So they are well supplied with blood vessels. This means that they can supply enough oxygen to wherever they are going and take out a lot of carbon dioxide. So there are a lot of blood vessels in the areas of the respiratory organs. Is that clear? Number three, they are kept moist. They are kept moist. Moist simply means there's a water environment around it. There is a watery environment around it. This is because we know that water contains oxygen. So anytime there is watery environment around the organs, then there will be the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in and outside the organs of the respiratory system. Is that clear? So they are always kept moist. Finally, respiratory organs have thin walls. Thin walls. Thin walls. Why should the walls of the respiratory organs be thin? Do you have any idea? Try. Give your hands a try. Respiratory organs have thin walls because oxygen and carbon dioxide will be coming in and out. Now, if the walls are thick, it will make it difficult for the oxygen to come out of it, go in of it, or out of it like the carbon dioxide. So they need thin walls so that it will enhance easy exchange of gases. Easy exchange of gases. So when the wall is thin, gases can pass through easily. Carbon dioxide and oxygen can pass through the walls easily. So what are the features of the respiratory organs again? They have large surface area to facilitate gaseous exchange. They are well supplied with blood vessels. They are kept moist all the time, and the respiratory organs have thin walls. The respiratory organs have thin walls. Very good. Now this is the human respiratory system. This is the human respiratory system. Take a good close look at it. What can you mention? Let's start from the extreme right. We have the pharynx. That is what we call the throat. We have the pharynx. We call it the throat. We also have the larynx, what we call the voice box. So anytime you remember pharynx, remember larynx as well. And also we have the trachea, windpipe, that long thing that runs from the nose or from the larynx to the lungs. It's called the trachea. It's called the windpipe. We also have the lung. You can see it there on the right. The lungs are there. We have one on the left and one on the right. You can also see the space occupied by the heart. The space occupied by the heart. Also, we have the diaphragm down there. It's a dome-shaped part of the body. It's a dome-shaped part, and it's called the diaphragm. We'll learn the uses of all these parts or the functions of these parts in respiration shortly. We have the diaphragm. Okay, when you come to the left part, we have the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity. When you are breathing, where the air passes through your nose, it's called the nasal cavity. When we're mentioning the organs of the respiratory system, we mentioned the mouth. You can see it right beneath the nasal cavity. We have the mouth. We also have the glottis and the epiglottis. The glottis and the epiglottis. That is what you can see over there. We have the ribs. The ribs cover the lungs. The ribs cover the lungs. We have bronchus. It's a branching of the trachea to the lung. You can see the bronchus there. It's where the trachea branches into the lung. Now, after the bronchus has branched into the lung, the bronchus also branches into several parts called bronchioles. Bronchiole. That is what you can also see there. Then finally, we have the alveolus. Okay, so these are the parts of the human respiratory system. Take a close look at it. Try and draw it on your own. And label it when you are done. Now let's look at the function. The nose or the nostrils. It traps dust particles contained in inhaled air from the atmosphere with the aid of hairs in the nostrils. There are hairs in the nose that traps dirt when they come into the nose. When you breathe in air contains a lot of things, and not all of them is good for the system inside our body. So the hair in the nostrils traps the dirt so that they don't go inside our bodies. Nasal cavity. It is responsible for detecting smell. It also warms inhaled air and traps any microbes in the air with the help of the mucous lining. Nasal cavity, that is its function. It warms the air. Our internal system is warm. The temperature outside is not the same as the temperature inside. So when the air is getting into the body, it needs to be warmed, and that is what the nasal cavity does. The nasal cavity also has some microbes, a mucous lining that traps the microbes that we breathe in. Is that clear? Alright. Pharynx. It is lined with hair and mucus, which helps filter inhaled air. So you can see that the nose, the nasal cavity, the pharynx, all that we have mentioned so far, they are trying to prevent certain things from getting into the lungs. So at every step of the way, they are filtering the air that we breathe in. So the pharynx is lined with hair and mucus, which helps filter inhaled air. Trachea. It acts as the passage which inhaled air gets into the lungs. We saw the trachea is from the pharynx straight into the lungs. It's the windpipe, that long thing we see in the throat. Okay, so that is the trachea. The trachea acts as the passage through which inhaled air gets to the lungs and exhaled air gets to the atmosphere. So apart from taking air into the body, the trachea also helps to bring air out of the body. It is lined with cilia and contains mucus secreting cells to filter the air passing through it to protect the lungs. The lungs are very delicate, and any dirt, any organism that is not supposed to be there, when it gets there, can cause lots of troubles. So the trachea also has cilia and contains mucus secreting cells to filter the air that is going to the lungs. Alright. The larynx. It contains vocal cords which vibrate to produce sound when one is speaking. The larynx is also the voice box. Okay, so it also contains vocal cords. Anytime you speak, there's vibration in your larynx and it allows the sound to be heard. Once again, it is also lined with cilia, and this time it is a ciliated epithelium and the mucus secreting cells, and it also traps dust particles and microbes in the air. So almost all the parts of the respiratory system are trapping bad substances or bad particles, dust particles in the air to prevent them from getting to the lungs. Now we have the ribs. The ribs are the bones in your that upper part of your body, the ribs. When somebody is thin and hungry for a long time, you can see the ribs showing, the bones around your chest. There are several ones of them. They protect the lungs. They protect the lungs and they aid in breathing. Now, do you remember the diaphragm, the dome-shaped structure we saw? It was the last structure in the respiratory system, the dome-shaped structure. What it does is that it relaxes and contracts to aid gaseous exchange during breathing. When we are breathing, the diaphragm sometimes goes down or comes up. So it relaxes and then it contracts so that air can move in and out of the system. Then last, the bronchi. The bronchi. One is bronchus, two is bronchi. So this is the plural of the bronchus. So it is strengthened by incomplete rings of cartilage to keep it open for the passage of air in the alveoli. We'll learn this into detail the next time we pick up this lesson. Alright, so let's take our evaluation and then we wrap up this first lesson. Our evaluation. Number one, what is respiration? What is respiration? Number two, list 4 respiratory organs. I believe you remember we listed them at the beginning of the class. List 4 respiratory organs. Number 3, list 3 features of the respiratory organs. List 3 features of the respiratory organs. Number 4, label the parts of the human respiratory system. You have a diagram of the human respiratory system. You are supposed to label its parts. Alright, all too soon we've come to the end of today's lesson, and I believe that you have learned quite a lot. Keep reading the notes, keep doing your homework, and keep learning as you stay at home. See you soon.